C.S. Lewis advises us to read old books. Here's one that I would recommend: Augustine's On Christian Doctrine. If you're a Christian who wants to read Scripture and understand it well, I don't know of a better starting point. A lot of times in hermeneutics, the study of the interpretation of texts, you start by looking at methodologies, by trying to understand how a human reader and human mind works, and such like that. Augustine starts with God in his approach. So Scripture exists to enjoy or to rest in the triune God. In fact, as Augustine would go on to say, that's why everything exists. There are different things that you can love, Augustine will say. Love things higher than you, maybe the angels, maybe something like that. You can love yourself, you can love things even with you, other people, you can love your animals, things beneath you. But all of those things don't exist for themselves. They only exist as they relate to God and bring you into relationship with God. And the same thing occurs for the Bible. The Bible is a tool. It's something that is meant to be used to draw you into the presence of the triune God. Now, Augustine will go on in his later books to show that there's a certain way of reading the Bible that's good, but he always subjects that to the love of God as the final goal of Scripture. He compares it with a person going on a walk to a certain destination. He can take the path, or if he knows the path really well, sometimes he can cut through a field. And cutting through the field, he might arrive at the proper destination. Maybe he'll get there a little bit late because he didn't go on the straight path, but he'll get there. We do this something similar when we read the Bible and we use the wrong verses for the right ends. When we have an idea that's doctrinally correct and then we sort of white knuckle the verses that we want to use inside of our sermon or something like that to make the point that we want them to make. But Augustine cautions against this, even though he says, you did well in getting to the right point. You brought the scriptures into love, doctrinally correct love. You don't want to make a habit of that. Because what if you get lost and then you don't actually make it to the destination? That can happen in a field, and it can happen in our Bible interpretation. And therefore, the rules that we apply to Scripture are really important because they keep us from going astray. You need the stuff that modern hermeneutics would teach, but you don't need it in isolation from a goal. And so much of our modern reading and so much of our modern culture, we read as though you can understand what Scripture means apart from the goal that Scripture exists for, which is to love God for his own sake.